There's a place in this world everyone should know. Beautiful Barbados, if I may say so. Place in this world everyone should know. Beautiful Barbados, if I may say so. You may try.
It was Laura Radio, also known as Oliver Moves. How are you doing today, Laura?
Not bad. Saturday, wonderful as you check it out around. Oliver Moves, better known as Laura Radio.
All right, how'd you get the name Laura Radio?
That's a long story. First to begin with, my father was an entertainer. My father worked at Heyman's Sugar Factory. I was born in St. Peter, incidentally. And my father worked at Heyman's as what we call a chemist. And he played the guitar, and he sang a lot of calypsos and so on in those days. The days when you would say you bring your guitar to fool my daughter. So my father was very famous for that. And they used to call him Sticky. So what happened is that when I was a baby, my mother brought me into Bridgetown because my mother was raised by her aunt, a lady by the name of Rhoda Gaskin, who lived in Grisettes. So my mother brought me up to her with the figure that she did a good job on her. She would probably be able to do a good job on me. My mother didn't have any other children and didn't have any practice as such. So I came up to town and spent the first couple of years of my life in Bridgetown. I got to doing a lot of singing, lot of singing. As a matter of fact, I would sing 24 hours a day. And the big thing about the radio business was that when I got vacation from, I went to St. Leonard's, my first school was St. Stephen, but I went to St. Leonard's Avenue. And when I got vacation, I would go down to Switestone, and I would be singing all of the cowboy songs and ballads and jazz numbers and everything. I'd be singing just like a radio. So really, Lord thing came is when I go down home on my school vacation, all the trainers by the summer would gather around me and they'd sit on the step and say, we come to hear the radio. So I would sing and they would, listen. So when I decided that I was pretty good at writing calypsos in those days, the Lord thing became natural. Because it was either Lord or Mighty in those days. Since then we heard about King Swallow and King Sparrow, but in those days it was either Lord or Mighty.
Well, I guess the Lord flowed better with radio rather than Mighty Radio. So.
Yeah, but many years after I also discovered that there was another radio. In Trinidad they had an old man named King Radio. And he had one, King Radio, but I didn't know that when I was singing. I was singing in the early days. I was singing, I was born in 1937, and when I was 7 years old, I was singing like almost all the time.
Right. Did you have any influences, or are you just naturally?
Oh, I had a lot of influences, man. Of course, the first would have been my father.
Right.
I went to Heyman's factory one Saturday afternoon, and my mother sent me to him to get some money, because in those days, you had to be around your father after a day to get some money. Because they didn't used to live together, right? My mother and my father were living together. And at break time, my father said, "Come, son, come and go with me." And he walked out in the yard, and we went into a little hut they had there. And he reached on top of the hut and he took down this guitar. I didn't know anything about the guitar or anything like that. But he took it down, he started strumming and singing Matilda and Brother Nelly got locked up and he ain't doing nothing. Them kind of things, right? I kind of picked them up. So when I got back to town after the vacation, I would be singing the songs that I heard my dad do. And the Reverend at St. Leonard's Church was a big, big, fat guy called Benny Simmons. Reverend Simmons, big, big, big guy. And he heard me singing and said to my aunt, why don't you let him come and join the choir? He's really got a great voice, will be an asset to the choir. So, therefore I became a Calypsonian at other times and a church man on Sundays.
All right, so what was your first band you worked with?
Oh, well, not a band. There was a guy, a couple of guys from down north. As I told you, I was from north. There was two brothers, Mike Gibbs and Egbert Gibbs, and they were from St. Louis, down just past Checker Hall, going down to Maycox, right down by the cement plant now. Mike and Egbert, they played, accompanied me on the guitar, and we had another guy from Carlton, Upper Carlton. His name was George Russell. We called him Tommy. He lived in New York. Now he lived in New York many, many years. So apart from the three of those, I had a guy from St. Lucie that we used to call Maccabee. Maccabee was a guy who loved his cowboy songs. He did a lot of country and western, and he was so much into it that he would cut out a board gun and get piece of leather and make a holster and put it on, and he wore his cowboy hat on the side, and he painted up his bicycle like you would dress up a horse. And he left for England though, early enough. He left me with Egbert and so on. We had another guy called Bajan. And they were all local troubadours. We didn't have bands to speak of in the countryside. You would hear about Sidney Niles and his band, or Percy Green and his band, or something like that. If you're in town, those guys probably played at the Marine, and occasionally Saturday night or so. But in my business, it was not band. In my business, it was a matter of a guy with a guitar and me with a pair of shack jacks. And you're singing and you're whistling, you know, and then I joined up with the Bruce Cosmington Quartet, which featured the Mighty Jerry.
Right, yeah.
And we did like Colony Club and Coral Reef and those places, but it would be like four pieces: lead, guitar, rhythm, guitar, bass, and bongo drums.
Right.
In most cases it was bongos. I learned to play the bongos. And Jerry strummed the guitar, and that was the big thing.
Right.
And in came a guy called Clifton Glasgow.
Right, yeah.
And he was the king of them all.
Yeah, change everything.
King, man, that.
Yeah.
He passed away recently, a few months ago.
Yeah.
But I've never heard anybody play a guitar like him. And I know some good ones. Mike Seeley is extremely good. Mike is very, very good. We have a White Spice sound off of him. I'm very proud of a guy called Hope, David Hope.
Yeah.
And he plays with the festival band and other things. And he's a great guitarist.
Yeah. Well, you can also boast that you had some of the best of the local musicians in the groups that you had.
You mean me?
Back in the time, yeah, right?
Yes. Yes, you see, I had this situation where I worked with Bruce Cosmington and the Mighty Jerry, as I told you. We had a guy, a couple of old guys played bass. We had Sidney Willock, was the bassman. We had a guy called Penny Wilkins. We had Adolphus Skeet.
Bell Small,
Obviously, Bell Small would have come in after.
Yeah.
Bell Small came in, actually in my group, but the days I talk about it was no Bell Small then.
Right.
But we had this little four-man side going, and Jim Kidd wanted to record the Mighty Jerry, and Jerry decided he would have done it alone. When the kid told him, "Well, I understand that you're part of a group." He says, "Man, I'm going to do it by myself. I don't need no group." And up came Candy Brandy with the whistling and somebody the guitar whistling. But the hotel thing was what we did, and in most cases, uninvited. We just turned up at the hotel and would walk along the beach side as close as we could get to the guests, and we would do what we call scrubbing. You know, the guys would come along with the acoustic guitar, and they'd scrub, and the tourists would throw over a shilling or 2 shillings or a 60-cent piece, which was big money in those days. And we had a fallout. We had a fallout. The guys from town called me a country buck. And they thought that I should not be getting the money. Right? And we did a lot of work in the Diamond Horseshoe, some of the clubs in town. Diamond Horseshoe, the Zanzibar, Harry's Nightery, and all those are places that we would have played in those days, especially when the sailors was in. You know, we'd spread a piece of cloth and we'd play and so on. And so we did some work on Saturday nights with Harry Wills, and Bel-Air came along and so on. But I got into the hotel thing because although it was not a big dollar, it was a sure dollar. I knew I would get my $3 at the end of a night playing in the hotel. And when I did a stint at Harry's Night or anything, he wasn't sure I was going to get anything. So my big nights would have been Saturday nights. I did a couple of gigs at Club Morgan, which was a big club going in those days. And I'd get $4 when I worked at Club Morgan. Along with a guy named Sam Rivera, pianist, he's trying to be that. He played piano, and those would be the days of Ernie Small, Keith Campbell, you know, and all them guys. But at the hotel, you had a chance of picking up a few bucks, or you had a chance of having the dog loose on you, depending on how good he was. But I got a couple of managers that liked what I did, and they kind of forced me. Like the guy from the White House Inn, named Andy White. He owned the White House Inn, he was English. And he said, "Come on the inside, man." You know, he just thought that a guy like me shouldn't be out there scrubbing me. So I'd come in and work on the inside. And at Paradise Beach Club, there were a couple of different managers there that liked my singing too. And one of them even sent me to Aaron Carp's London shop to get a white shirt and a black pants, you know, so that I could look good. He liked me so much that they offered me a job as a dining hall waiter at Paradise Beach Club. So I was a dining hall waiter. And then I got my first cab somewhere in the late 50s, and I was driving taxi in the yard, whatever, would be an honest dollar. I did a lot of work. So one thing is that I always kept going. Once it was an honest dollar coming, you know, and it was at the same Paradise Beach Club I met my wife, the lady who I married her from 1962 back to now. We have been holding, and she's a very ambitious person. She became Barbados top chef from 1971. She went to France and Sweden and all about, studied at the Culinary Institute and so on in the States. So we did a lot of work inside there. I heard the guys talking now about the possibility of having entertainers go out to the cruise liners to attract tourists and things to Barbados. I got news for them. I was doing that many years ago. I used to go out on the Sun Viking. I had a little contract with the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line.
As far as being a singer and being able to go from one genre to the next, whether it be ballad, calypso,
Yeah.
stuff like that, do you find the transition easy, number one, and number two, you can also explain the art of a pecan?
That's the hardest thing. What I can tell you, I got the ability to do pecan by my association with a couple of guys in town. Now, my aunt had two shops. My aunt that raised me had a shop in Thomas Gap and one in Richmond Gap. Then they went on and they had another shop in Boxers Road. But the guys would sit on my aunt's step on a night. This time I was still like 13, 14 and so on. They would sit on my aunt's step and sing. In those days, if some guys went out and they got drunk, they would sing. They wouldn't fight, they wouldn't look for bottles, no nothing. They would sing hymns. And whether they knew what to sing or not, everybody sang lustily. And it was hymns. And you would hear saw, tall, long, all kind of notes that you can't find anywhere on the music sheet.